Hello, my name is Karen Hensel. Thank you for joining us today. Today I will be sharing tips with you on describing an environment for a visually impaired child. We'll be looking at both a playground and an intersection. Describing the environment supports orientation, mobility, and concept development in addition to promoting independence. As I mentioned, we'll be looking at both a playground and an intersection, and later you will get a chance to describe a playground, so have a paper and pen handy. But don't worry, I'll give you plenty of time to get it, and we'll let you know when we're at that point. When describing an environment, how much detail you go into depends upon the age, maturity level, and developmental level of the student. Factors to consider include the level of detail that you choose to go into, using familiar references, size, and shape. And when talking about size and shape and familiar references, it's important to use concepts that the student is familiar with and understands. For example, using body image is an excellent way to describe something. Is it as long as your arm, as long as your leg, as small as your pinky finger? You can use familiar toys, household items, and other references that you know the student is very familiar with. You can look at orientation concepts and mention compass directions, east, west, north, and south, street names, and other landmarks. Now let's look at an example of a playground and some ideas on how to describe it.
Factors to consider when describing the environment. Reference familiar objects for your child. Size. For example, in describing this playground, I would say that the playground is 8 car lengths long. The south end, which is the wider end of the playground, is approximately 4 cars width wide, and the north is 2 car widths wide. Shape. The shape of this playground actually has 6 sides. You could also call it a hexagon or a polygon. Orientation. Use compass directions as much as possible, referencing street names and known landmarks. Landmarks can be tactile, such as the wood chips, the concrete edges, the plastic or vinyl edging, and surface materials such as metal and wood. Landmarks can also be auditory. In our example, we have traffic noise. We also have the hum of a generator that comes on and off, and church bells. And then last, landmarks can also be olfactory, perhaps the smells of a nearby restaurant or factory. Cane use. If the child is using a cane or an assistive mobility device, encourage the use of that and for the child to take their cane onto the playground. And then other factors such as animals, adults and other children on the playground, and any safety hazards, for example, holes or sharp protruding objects.
Now it's your turn, so get that paper and pen ready. You're going to watch a short clip showing the same playground, and please jot down your ideas for describing this playground. Here are some ideas for describing that playground. Notice that I mentioned the size, shape, and some familiar references. I mentioned also the sounds and the different textures on the playground.
On the south side of the playground in the dirt area, there is a basketball court with 2 basketball hoops, a bench. Then there is a distinguishable edging, a plastic edging that runs the majority of the playground. The playground is filled with wood chips. Inside the wood chips area, there is a swing set with 4 swings. Behind it is a generator which hums on and off occasionally that your child may be able to hear. And that is on the west side. Beyond that is Pikes Peak Street, which is a busy street and traffic might be heard. The edge of the playground on the west side is also designated by the edging, the plastic edging, which is at the end of the wood chips and approximately 2 inches high. In the center of the playground is a platform tower with a canopy, with railings, a triple slide, a climbing course, stairs, ladders, and another climbing ring course. Continuing to the north is another platform tower with a canopy providing shade, a rock climbing wall, stairs, and a double slide. Most of the equipment is plastic and the platforms are metal and about 5 feet tall. On the north and east side of the wood chip playground area is a frame of a concrete sidewalk of approximately 1.5 inches high. Beyond the playground to the north is a grassy area and trees. To the east is a building. No water fountains or bathrooms are visible. The wood chip area appears to be level.
For low vision students, you can possibly use color and visual landmarks. So let's take a look one more time at that playground through the eyes of a child with low vision.
Now let's look at that same playground again from the viewpoint of a child with low vision of approximately 2400 acuity. The basketball court, which is white, is visible. However, the basketball hoops are not. The bench is not visible. The black line is the edge between the wood chips and the landscaping. There is movement in the center, and that is actually the swing set, which your child may be able to see. The blue slide is an excellent landmark. On the right is another blue landmark. It is the canopy of the tower platform, and between is the climbing ring course with movement on it. Also on the left is the climbing wall and another blue slide behind the climbing wall. What you can't see are the stairs, the bridge, and other climbing equipment. Whether traveling to a new area or during daily routines, describe the environment to support orientation, mobility, concept development, and independence for a visually impaired child.
Now we are going to switch gears and talk about intersections. There are many factors to consider when talking about intersections. The first being the type of intersection. Is the intersection a stop sign? And if it is it a two-way, a three-way, or a four-way stop sign? When talking about stop sign intersections, you can have the student listen and say stop or start and point in the direction that the car is traveling so that you know they understand how the traffic is flowing through a stop sign intersection. In a lighted intersection, it's important to talk about whether there's pedestrian signal or not, and if it's audible. With pedestrian signals, you can go through the whole cycle, starting with the walk sign, which is often a white man, and will often have also a countdown. Usually there's also you need to finish, you need to hurry up and get through the intersection, which is a flashing sign. And then last there is the don't cross sign. So you can discuss all those with the student if they have low vision. T intersections don't automatically have a stop sign, and it's important for the student to know whether it is a stop sign or a yield sign, and that they understand what the difference is between those. And with roundabouts, have the student understand how many exits and entry points there are to the roundabouts. And again, you can use compass directions and clock face directions to assist with that. So whether traveling to a new area or to intersections, you want to describe the environment. Again, in talking about intersections, we want to look at how many lanes, including turn lanes. And you can designate whether they're left-hand turn lanes or right-hand turn lanes. Mention street names and compass directions of the streets that are traveling east-west, the streets that are traveling north-south, and intersection corners. You can also use compass directions when talking about intersection corners. If there's a particular landmark or a destination that the student wants to go to, you can designate that, for example, as the northwest corner or the southeast corner of the intersection. Mention if there's crosswalks and how many there are and where they are. The timing of lights, if it's a lighted intersection. Often the timing can be different depending upon if you're crossing the perpendicular or parallel street. And the volume of traffic can also vary between perpendicular and parallel traffic. Perpendicular is crossing in front of the body, shoulder to shoulder. And parallel would be beside the body, parallel such as in train tracks. Mention the sidewalks or lack of sidewalks, the condition of the sidewalks, if they're in good shape, if they're smooth or rough, the type of material that they're made out of, and any curb cuts or blended ramps into the streets. And then also the terrain, because often you'll encounter other terrain, such as gravel, dirt, rocks, grass, uneven terrain, and you want to mention that when describing the intersection. For low vision students, talk about visual clues. That could be other signage, it could be other landmarks such as that we talked about, it could be olfactory landmarks, auditory landmarks, and street hardware. Street hardware would include fire hydrants, tree wells, benches, lamp posts. Numerous items are out there. So you can mention the street hardware as landmarks and as points of reference. There can often be changing light conditions, such as the sun, the weather, trees that provide shade, construction. There may be a canopy that's put up or a walkway that must be utilized because of the construction, or other high contrast items. And then, of course, if the student is using a cane or an assisted mobility device, you would want to take that into account. In this example, it is a four-way stop sign. I know you can't see all four stop signs, but you can see that there are at least two, and that you do see the crosswalks here. There's another photo here of the same intersection. And it does show crosswalks, it shows the sidewalks, but you can see there is a lot of varying terrain just off the sidewalks. For example, this empty dirt field. So in describing this intersection, I would say that it's a four-way stop sign. There are crosswalks at every corner. The sidewalks are about 4 feet wide. They were smooth concrete. There are curb cuts at every corner. And in this particular example, the traffic was heavier on the east-west street, which was 3 lanes wide. The north-south street was 2 lanes wide. And other than the lamp post, there was no visible street hardware. So thank you for your time today, and I hope you found this Noon Bite beneficial, and that you'll tune in again for future videos. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us. Contact me at khensel@csdb.org. Thank you.